Welcome to the webinar. My name is Sarah, and today I'm going to teach you how to heal hormonal chaos and increase fertility naturally without drugs and expensive treatments. We're going to go through the specific natural remedies that I use in my private practice with clients to heal the 6 most common hormone conditions that are affecting your fertility. Research shows that 1 out of 7 couples are struggling with infertility, and we know that hormonal dysfunction is the root cause of most fertility issues. The research also shows that 44% of women seeking reproductive assistance are under age 35. So we know that it's not just women of advanced maternal age who are having trouble conceiving. What we do know is that what you eat and how you live absolutely determines the health of your hormones, how well they function, and therefore how fertile you are. You can balance your hormones naturally and improve your conception chances without dangerous drugs or expensive treatments. Whether you have an undiagnosed mystery or a specific health condition preventing you from getting pregnant, one of the most important things you can do right now to increase fertility and finally get pregnant is to live and eat in a way that creates the best environment possible for implantation and a healthy baby. With the right food, movement, nutrients, and emotional state, your body is optimized for conception. You are designed to feel happy, energized, and amazing in your body. We know that hormones affect everything. They affect your fertility, they affect your mood, your energy, your weight, even your happiness. So what changes are you willing to make to turn your dream into a reality? Imagine feeling comfortable in your skin and in front of the mirror. Imagine easily maintaining your ideal weight. Imagine getting rid of brain fog and the inability to concentrate. Imagine increasing your sexual energy and your libido. Imagine having no more breast tenderness, mood swings, food cravings, and bloating before your cycle. Imagine having more energy and sleeping better. And finally, imagine being able to get pregnant easily and without struggle when you're ready. Imagine seeing the 2 positive lines on the pregnancy test. And finally, imagine holding your baby. You are probably here because 1, you want support and direction. You've been trying to get pregnant for months, maybe years, and it's just not working. You've tried everything to treat your hormone condition, and nothing is changing. And you know that alternatives are rather expensive and usually quite risky. So in the next 60 minutes, I will identify the 6 most common hormone conditions that contribute to more than 80% of infertility cases. I'm going to show you exactly how to naturally improve your fertility and increase your chances of conception by learning how to heal the 6 most common hormone conditions that negatively affect your fertility health. My name is Sarah Sandy. I'm a functional nutrition therapist, and I've helped hundreds of women conceive and have healthy babies by teaching them how to optimize their hormones and how to alleviate the most common modern hormone imbalances, such as PMS, PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, amenorrhea, and more. I've helped hundreds of women conceive and have healthy babies. I've been researching and studying how the food we eat and the way we live affect our reproductive systems for over a decade. I'm a national fertility and women's health expert, and I work rather closely with several of the top-rated fertility doctors in the Rocky Mountain region. I have a master's level certification in nutrition therapy and have taken numerous trainings on the topics of functional endocrinology, women's hormonal health, thyroid health, gut healing, and male health specifically. So how did I get here? What got me interested in fertility, ovaries, hormones, and babies? Well, when I was 16, I began having horrible, painful periods every 2 weeks, always accompanied by the classic PMS nightmare. I saw acupuncturists, conventional doctors, and healers. I tried everything. Reiki, medications, you name it, nothing seemed to help. And then when I was 19, my cycle stopped coming completely. So for years, my cycle remained elusive, never staying around for long, and disappearing for months or years at a time. Eventually, my stepfather, a medical doctor with a passion for holistic medicine, recommended I see a naturopath. Within 4 weeks, her nutritional-based treatment plan resulted in my first spontaneous menstrual cycle in years. This experience fueled my fascination with food and its ability to heal. I was blown away at the power of food. I completed a graduate program rooted in the conviction that food, as nature intended, is a form of medicine that can heal, protect, nurture, and support health. So when it came to time to write my thesis paper, I was immediately drawn to the subject of how to increase fertility naturally. Even though I wasn't trying to get pregnant at the time, I realized when I was ready, I would definitely be struggling to conceive. Since then, I've continued to apply what I've learned personally and have helped hundreds of women and couples finally get pregnant and have a healthy baby. During my journey, I rediscovered traditional ways of living and being and began to apply them in my own life. These principles include eating foods my great-grandmother would have recognized, foods she would have grown, raised, fished, or caught. I began syncing my wake and sleep cycle much more closely with the sun, so my body has a rhythm to rely on. Limiting the amount of time I spend on electronic devices, making nature a non-negotiable part of my day, learning how to sit quietly without the need to constantly be doing something all the time. And I began moving my body in ways that feel invigorating and positive instead of depleting. And I began to be grateful for the body I was given, accepting myself fully and letting go of wishing to be different in any way. Eventually, I completely restored my hormonal health. No more missing cycles, no more painful periods, no more PMS, eczema, depression, anxiety, weight gain, or brain fog. But let's talk about you, right? You're in the right place if you have been diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, blocked fallopian tubes, low progesterone, or estrogen dominance. Or if you struggle with PMS symptoms like weight gain and bloating, painful cramping, brain fog or moodiness, anxiety or fatigue, breast tenderness, acne, and the list goes on and on. This workshop is also for you if you've taken the pill or any other form of hormonal birth control, if you struggle with amenorrhea, which is the absence of a menstrual cycle, if you've been told you have unexplained infertility, or you've been told you have poor quality eggs, or your partner has poor quality sperm, if you just started trying to conceive, or you're currently going through IVF and want to improve your outcome, or maybe you're just taking a break between IVF treatments. Or maybe you've experienced a miscarriage, or maybe even more than one miscarriage. And lastly, this workshop is for you if you are interested in conscious conception and preparing your body for a healthy pregnancy when the time is right. You will get the most benefit if your FSH levels are under 30, you don't have any major physical blockages such as multiple fibroids, advanced endometriosis, or total tubal obstruction, where surgery really is the best option. And you are willing to make dietary and lifestyle changes to optimize your fertility. So let's get started. First of all, make sure you're fully present. Minimize distractions, close all the other tabs you may have open on your computer screen, turn your cell phone on silent, go find a quiet place where you can just close the door, minimize any outside distractions. Make yourself some hot tea and get out your favorite notebook and pen so you can be sure to take some notes. I want you to walk away feeling empowered and educated, so take the time and be here now. Does this sound like you? You've been diagnosed, or maybe even self-diagnosed, with a hormone condition such as PCOS, fibroids, endometriosis, low progesterone, estrogen dominance, or blocked fallopian tubes. Or maybe you've been told you have unexplained infertility. And does this sound like you? You'd love to get pregnant naturally, and you want to do everything you can to improve your chances of conceiving. You'd like to avoid expensive fertility treatments and drugs, if at all possible, and you're willing to make changes in your diet and lifestyle to achieve your dream. How would it feel to know exactly what you need to do now to support your optimal fertility health, heal hormonal chaos, and increase your chances of having a healthy, full-term pregnancy? Ashley, a one-on-one client I worked with, says, I have a beautiful 5-month-old daughter now. I started working with Sarah after a couple of devastating pregnancy losses. She took time to get me on track with what I needed to be eating and focusing on, not only to improve my health, but to help me learn about foods that would ultimately support my fertility and growing baby.
Within the first 5 minutes of sitting down with her, I learned more about my body and just the entire reproductive system. And I mean, the 5 minutes alone paid for itself.
She has this energy about her that she really, really cares about the people she works with. She genuinely cares about your well-being.
I immediately had such a strong connection with her. Within 30 minutes, she helped me figure out why I had been sick for 30 years of my life.
She's an amazing teacher. Everything is so approachable. All the details are there.
And then experiencing the transformation of having good nutrition and the effects of that on my body, it just blows my mind.
I'm only 2 months into it, and she has completely changed kind of my outlook on everything.
Working with her helped me see that my body does want to heal, and food can get me there. That's something that I will always carry with me.
This can absolutely be you. It is possible. You can balance your hormones naturally and improve your conception chances without drugs or expensive treatments. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to identify the 6 most common hormone conditions that cause 80% of fertility problems. We're going to learn exactly how and why each of these conditions affects fertility. And we're going to recognize the common signs and symptoms of each condition. And of course, we're going to learn how to naturally treat these conditions with food, lifestyle changes, and targeted supplementation. So why aren't you getting pregnant? Well, hormone dysfunction is the root cause of almost all fertility struggles. The 6 most common hormone conditions that negatively affect fertility health are polycystic ovary syndrome, which throughout the webinar I will continue to refer to as PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, low progesterone, estrogen dominance, and blocked fallopian tubes. So let's dive into each of these individually so you can really understand the ins and outs of each of these conditions. Polycystic ovary syndrome has been recognized and diagnosed for over 75 years, but more than half of women who have PCOS have been undiagnosed. So it's estimated that approximately 1 in 10 women in their childbearing age are affected by PCOS, and half of those women don't even know it. Not only that, but PCOS is responsible for 70% of infertility issues in women who have difficulty ovulating. Those numbers are huge and are super important to pay attention to. PCOS is one of the most common hormone endocrine disorders among women of reproductive age. PCOS can be a complex condition to identify because there are several symptoms and you don't have to have all of them to be diagnosed with PCOS. Very few women have the same set of symptoms. Polycystic means many cysts and refers to the many clusters of small pearl-sized cysts that appear on the ovaries. Now, not all women who have PCOS have these multiple cysts, and not all women who have multiple cysts have PCOS. The cysts are actually not cysts, but partially formed follicles which contain immature eggs. Unfortunately, the exact cause of PCOS is actually really unknown. However, there do appear to be connections with family history and insulin resistance caused by lifestyle choices and/or environment. We know that immediate female relatives, such as daughters or sisters of women with PCOS, have up to a 50% chance of having PCOS as well. And type 2 diabetes is also common in families of those with PCOS. So insulin resistance is present in up to 80% of women with PCOS. One of the roles of insulin is to keep the levels of glucose, otherwise known as blood sugar, from rising too high after we eat. But if you're insulin resistant, your body doesn't use the available insulin effectively to help keep the glucose levels stable. So insulin comes knocking at the door of the cell to let glucose in, but the cells are all filled up with too much glucose already, so they become deaf to insulin's knock at the door. And because the insulin is not working effectively, the body produces even more insulin, and unfortunately, these high levels in the bloodstream increase the production of androgen male hormones, such as testosterone, made in the ovaries, and it's this high level of androgens that cause the many symptoms of PCOS, such as acne, excess hair growth, hair loss, irregular cycles, weight gain, and much more. Higher than normal androgen levels in the body also prevents the ovaries from ovulating, which is releasing an egg, during each menstrual cycle. This is what creates the small cysts on the ovaries, making it much more difficult to conceive. So this is where the name polycystic ovary derives from, meaning many cysts. Many of the symptoms of PCOS are caused by these high levels of androgen hormones circulating in the body. Androgens are also called male hormones, and the main one is testosterone. All women produce small amounts of androgens in tissues, including the ovaries and the adrenal glands, but women with PCOS produce much higher amounts of these male hormones. And these higher than normal androgen levels are what cause the numerous symptoms of PCOS. So symptoms of PCOS can include, but are not limited to, lack of a period or infrequent or long menstrual cycles, excess hair growth in unexpected places, such as on your face, your belly, your inner thighs, your back, around your nipples, acne, which is often cystic acne, weight gain, specifically around your stomach and your abdomen, thinning hair on your scalp, depression, mood changes, and unfortunately, infertility. So let's move on to endometriosis. Endometriosis is a painful chronic disease that affects at least 6.3 million women and girls in the US. Infertility among women is said to be one of the main complications that arise from endometriosis. And according to the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, around 30 to 50% of infertile women suffer from this condition. Unfortunately, like PCOS, endometriosis is hugely underdiagnosed. On average in the US, it takes 10 years from symptom onset to receive an accurate diagnosis of endometriosis. So endometriosis occurs when tissue that lines the uterus, which is called the endometrium, is found growing outside the uterus, often in the abdominal region, on the ovaries, on the fallopian tubes, on the ligaments that support the uterus, the area between the vagina and the rectum, the outer surface of the uterus, or the lining of the pelvic cavity. So with endometriosis, this displaced endometrial tissue continues to act as it normally would. So it responds to estrogen and therefore thickens, breaks down, and bleeds with each menstrual cycle. And because this displaced tissue has no way to exit your body, it becomes trapped in your pelvis. The trapped tissue in your pelvis can become irritated, eventually developing scar tissue and adhesions, which can cause obviously extreme pain, unfortunately infertility, scar tissue formation, adhesions, and bowel problems. So what's the cause of endometriosis? Well, there are several causes that we do know of. Genetic predisposition. So we know that women who have a close female relative with endometriosis are 5 to 7 times more likely to have it themselves. Retrograde menstruation. So in normal menstruation, the uterine lining sheds following ovulation, of course, if an egg is not fertilized, and blood and endometrial tissue push forward out of the vagina, typically creating a steady blood flow for 3 to 7 days of menstruation. But when retrograde menstruation occurs, some blood and tissue actually flow backward up the fallopian tubes instead of forward and down through the vagina. So if endometrial tissue is clogging up the fallopian tubes or reaches the peritoneal cavity, these displaced endometrial cells stick to the pelvic walls and surfaces of the pelvic organs, where they begin to grow and continue to thicken and bleed over the course of each menstrual cycle. So unfortunately, there's usually no discernible symptoms of retrograde menstruation because for most women, it's considered a common occurrence that is harmless if you don't have endometriosis. Another cause of endometriosis that we know about is the lymphatic flow theory, which suggests that the endometrial tissue is spread throughout the body via the lymphatic system. Surgical scar implantation, so after a surgery, such as a C-section, for example, endometrial cells may attach to a surgical incision and then, of course, begin to grow and thicken with each menstrual cycle. Oxidative stress, so cell damage from free radicals due to inflammation in the body, has been suggested as the leading contributing factor for the development of endometriosis. This may be due to dietary factors, exposure to chemical toxins, aging, or an immune and inflammatory response. Immune system disorders, so it's possible that a problem with the way the immune system reacts may make the body unable to recognize and destroy this endometrial tissue that's growing in a place it's not supposed to, which is, of course, outside the uterus. And lastly, low progesterone and estrogen dominance. So low progesterone disrupts hormonal balance overall. When progesterone becomes low, estrogen usually becomes too high. Estrogen dominance and progesterone deficiency have been heavily linked to the development of endometriosis. So there's several symptoms that can occur with endometriosis. So the first, in which most people assimilate with endometriosis, is painful periods. So extreme pelvic pain and cramping that may begin before your period and extend several days into your cycle. You may also have very painful low back cramps and abdominal pain. Pain with intercourse, so this could be pain during or after sex, is definitely common with endometriosis. Pain with bowel movements or urination, which is most likely experienced during your period. Excessive bleeding, so you may experience heavy periods or bleeding actually between cycles. And of course, infertility. So endometriosis is sometimes very first diagnosed in women who are seeking treatment for infertility and don't know why. They can't get pregnant. So remember, the severity of your pain isn't necessarily a reliable indicator of the extent of the condition. Some women with mild endometriosis have intense pain, while others with advanced endometriosis may have little pain or even no pain at all. Fibroids. So fibroids are common in women in their 30s and are rarely seen in women under age 20. It's been estimated that between 20 to 50% of women of reproductive age have fibroids, although not all are diagnosed. Some estimates state that between 30 to 77% of women will develop fibroids sometime during their childbearing years, although only about 1/3 of these fibroids are large enough to be detected by a healthcare provider during a physical exam. It's believed that uterine fibroids develop from a stem cell in the smooth muscular tissue of the uterus. So a single cell divides repeatedly, eventually creating this firm, rubbery mass that's distinct from nearby tissue. And the growth patterns of uterine fibroids do vary. They may grow slowly, or they may grow rapidly, or they may remain the same size. Some fibroids go through growth spurts and some may shrink on their own. And while the exact cause of uterine fibroids is unknown, research and clinical experience definitely indicate that the following factors may lead to the development of fibroids. So genetic changes, just like we saw with the first two hormone conditions. Many fibroids contain changes in genes that differ from those in normal uterine muscle cells. Hormones, such as estrogen and progesterone, which are the two hormones that stimulate development of the uterine lining during each menstrual cycle in preparation for pregnancy, appear to promote the growth of fibroids. So fibroids contain more estrogen and progesterone receptors than normal uterine muscle cells do. And we know that fibroids tend to shrink after menopause due to a decrease in hormone production. Genetic disposition, so a woman with a mother or sister who had or has fibroids is more likely to develop fibroids herself. Race, African American women are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop fibroids than women of other races or ethnicities, and these women tend to have fibroids at younger ages and have more fibroids and larger ones. Diet, of course, so eating foods high in unhealthy fats like non-organic animal foods, dairy products, processed meats, fried foods, and vegetable oils all can increase inflammation in the body and usually contain multiple chemical additives and xenoestrogens, which play a role in the development of fibroids. Your weight. So women who are overweight or obese are more likely to develop fibroids compared to women who maintain a healthy weight. High blood pressure or hypertension seems to also increase a woman's risk of fibroids, as well as overt hypothyroidism has been associated with the presence of fibroids. Early menstruation, so women who begin menstruating prior to the age of 10 are at a higher risk for fibroids than women who start menstruating after the age of 10. And birth control, so taking birth control pills can make fibroids grow more quickly because of the increased estrogen level in the body. Symptoms of fibroids include heavy or prolonged menstrual periods, abnormal bleeding between menstrual cycles, pelvic pressure or pain, frequent urination and difficulty emptying the bladder, backache or leg pains, pain during intercourse, constipation, bloating or fullness in the stomach and pelvic region, the detection of an actual firm mass, which can be felt by a physician, and iron deficiency anemia. So, in many cases, the heavier prolonged menstrual periods that occur due to fibroids or the abnormal bleeding between periods can lead to this iron deficiency anemia. Low progesterone. So this is something I see in my private client practice all the time. Up to 35% of repeat miscarriages are linked to low progesterone production. Progesterone is a female sex hormone. It's produced mainly in the ovaries following ovulation each month and is one of the main hormones involved in helping to regulate the menstrual cycle and sustain a pregnancy. Progesterone is responsible for important functions like balancing the effects of estrogen, promoting full development of the fetus through pregnancy, signaling the release of insulin, increasing libido around ovulation, activating osteoblasts to increase new bone formation, protecting against endometrial, breast, ovarian, and prostate cancer, and normalizing blood clotting. Progesterone levels fluctuate throughout the menstrual cycle. Levels peak about 7 days before your period and can even vary in the course of a single day. But what actually causes low progesterone, chronic low progesterone levels in a woman? It's hard to nail down just one reason, but here are the top two that I see in my practice all the time. So the first is stress. Cortisol, which is the body's stress hormone, is released whenever the body feels like it's under stress. So when this happens, cortisol can block your body's progesterone receptors and inhibit progesterone activity. And because cortisol and progesterone rely on the same raw building materials from the body, if the body is under stress, it will always preferentially divert energy to the adrenal glands to make cortisol for survival on behalf of making progesterone, because making reproductive hormones is not deemed necessary for survival by the body at all. The second big cause of low progesterone is xenoestrogens. So in the body, estrogen and progesterone work like a seesaw. So as one goes up, the other goes down. And in our modern day, we live in an estrogen-dominant world. We're bombarded by environmental estrogens, known as xenoestrogens, all the time, every single day. They're in our food, all over our environment, and these xenoestrogens trick the body into thinking that your estrogen levels are actually higher than what they really are, and therefore progesterone levels suffer as a result. Low progesterone can cause a variety of symptoms, some obvious and some more subtle. Many of the symptoms of low progesterone coincide with symptoms of other health issues, so be aware that just because you may have some of these, it doesn't always mean your progesterone levels are low, which is why I 100% always recommend getting your hormone levels properly tested so we know exactly what is out of balance. So some of the main symptoms of low progesterone include irregular cycles. So this could mean that your cycles are longer or shorter than normal. Maybe they come sporadically, or you don't have a period at all. Short cycles, so this is also referred to as luteal phase defect, meaning your cycles are usually less than 25 days. Menstrual issues such as PCOS, endometriosis, mid-cycle spotting, severe menstrual cramps, and PMS symptoms like swollen breasts, tender breasts, water retention, those are all symptoms of low progesterone. Infertility, of course, as well as loss of energy, loss of our sex drive, chronic fatigue, low libido, emotional issues such as depression, anxiety, mood swings, heart palpitations, having that foggy brain feeling, memory lapse, and sleep disturbances. All can be symptoms of low progesterone. Skin issues such as acne, facial hair growth, brittle nails, cracked and dry skin, as well as weight gain, low thyroid function, water retention, and obesity. Yikes. So on the other side of the coin of low progesterone is estrogen dominance. And unfortunately, in our modern world, an epidemic number of women, over 90%, have some form of estrogen and progesterone disruption. So estrogen is one of the most important female reproductive hormones. It's produced primarily by the follicles and the corpus luteum, which is the remnant egg sac that remains after the egg has been ovulated. And estrogen is essential for healthy bone formation, healthy gene expression, maintaining healthy cholesterol levels, the formation of secondary sexual characteristics such as breast growth, pubic hair, etc. And estrogen, of course, is vital for a healthy menstrual cycle and optimal fertility, but it 100% needs to be in balance with progesterone. One of estrogen's main jobs is to create a thick uterine lining, which is critical to allow a newly fertilized embryo to embed successfully in the uterine wall. So the basic issue of estrogen dominance is that estrogen levels are too high relative to other hormones, specifically progesterone. Usually it occurs when estrogen levels go too high, though it can also happen when progesterone levels fall too low because of that seesaw effect that I was talking about earlier. And this hormone imbalance can occur at any time during life. So during our reproductive years, perimenopause, even menopause. There are several things that can lead to estrogen dominance, but not any one thing has been determined as the root cause. But what we do know are a few major causes of estrogen dominance. So the first is a poor diet. So a diet filled with processed foods and/or foods that are high in unhealthy fats, conventional animal foods, sugar, all of these things can increase estrogen levels. We also know that eating a diet high in soy foods dramatically increases estrogen levels. And if your diet is deficient in important minerals and nutrients such as magnesium, vitamin B6, this can also affect your estrogen levels. So environmental exposure to xenoestrogens. Like we talked about with low progesterone, these are those environmental estrogens that we're bombarded by every single day. So they're in our plastics, in our canned foods, our conventional meats, our dairy products, non-organic fruits and veggies, body care products, cleaning supplies. I mean, literally they're everywhere. And as we're exposed to more fake estrogens, we become more estrogen dominant and therefore more progesterone deficient, causing major hormone disruption and increased likelihood of fertility issues. Another cause of estrogen dominance is being overweight. Estrogen is stored and made in the fat cells of the body. So the more fat cells on our body, the higher our estrogen levels will be. Poor liver function. So the liver is responsible for clearing the body of old hormones, meaning hormones that have already been used, especially estrogen. But if the liver is overburdened by a high caloric diet, a diet filled with excess sugar, alcohol, vegetable oils, GMOs, chemicals, you name it, it can become sluggish in its ability to process everything. So when the liver slows down, estrogen ends up becoming backlogged and wreaks havoc on the reproductive system as it waits for the liver to catch up in its bloodstream clearing capacity. And lastly is stress. So cortisol, our body's stress hormone, as I spoke about earlier, is released, of course, whenever we're feeling stressed. And when this happens, specific hormone activity is inhibited, and then therefore hormone balance is thrown out of whack. So when the adrenals are stressed, the increased need for cortisol depletes progesterone, and as more progesterone is used because of the increased level of need for cortisol, less is available to balance estrogen, leading to increased estrogen levels. Similar to low progesterone, estrogen dominance can cause a variety of symptoms, some obvious and some subtle. Many of the symptoms of estrogen dominance coincide with symptoms of other health issues. So be aware, again, that just because you may have some of these, it doesn't always mean your estrogen levels are elevated. So it's always worth looking into and definitely getting your hormone levels properly assessed. So the symptoms of estrogen dominance that we absolutely do know are irregular cycles, fibroids, endometriosis, other menstrual issues like PMS symptoms such as water retention, digestive issues, swollen breasts, of course, infertility, loss of energy and sex drive. So there's that chronic fatigue, low libido thing again. Emotional issues such as headaches, depression, anxiety, mood swings, heart palpitations, sleep disturbances. Estrogen dominance can even cause skin issues such as allergy symptoms like asthma and hives, dry eyes, vaginal dryness is a big one, and hair loss, as well as weight gain, low thyroid function, water retention, and obesity. So you can see that the symptoms of estrogen dominance, low progesterone obviously overlap because, they both coexist together. If you've got low progesterone, then you usually have high estrogen and vice versa. So the last big hormone condition is blocked fallopian tubes. So when an egg is released from the ovaries, it travels through one of the fallopian tubes, which are narrow ducts that connect the ovaries to the uterus. And normally the egg will join with the sperm in the fallopian tubes, resulting in conception, and the now fertilized egg will continue on to the uterus. However, the fallopian tubes are extremely fragile. So when an obstruction prevents the egg from traveling down the tube, now a woman is considered to have a blocked fallopian tube, which is thought to be the cause of infertility in 40% of infertile women. So when an obstruction prevents the egg from traveling down the fallopian tube, this is what we consider blocked fallopian tubes, and remembering that it can occur on one or both sides. The most common cause of blocked fallopian tubes is pelvic inflammatory disease, otherwise known as PID. So PID is an umbrella term for a number of different problems that can create an inflammatory infection in the female reproductive system. So PID is usually the result of a sexually transmitted disease, but not all pelvic infections are related to STDs. Also, even if PID is no longer present, a history of PID or pelvic infection can increase the risk of blocked tubes. While PID is a common cause, other potential causes of blocked fallopian tubes include endometriosis, fibroids, ectopic pregnancy, tubal ligation removal, and complications from lower abdominal surgery, such as a C-section. So these conditions can cause fallopian tube blockage by causing adhesions, scar tissue, tumors, or polyps to form inside the path of the tube. The fallopian tubes may also become stuck to other parts of the internal body, such as the bladder, the ovaries, the uterus, the bowels, etc. And damaged fallopian tubes can become twisted, or the walls of the tubes may adhere together, causing a total blockage. So partially damaged fallopian tubes may remain open enough for pregnancy to occur, but a partial blockage does increase the risk for ectopic pregnancy. So an ectopic pregnancy happens when an embryo develops outside the uterus. About 98% of ectopic pregnancies implant in one of the fallopian tubes. So we know that an ectopic pregnancy is a medical emergency and can be fatal if not treated. Sadly, the pregnancy won't survive and cannot be moved to your womb. A doctor will remove the pregnancy tissues, and unfortunately, the affected fallopian tube is often usually also removed. So unfortunately, there are rarely signs of a blocked fallopian tube, and women don't even often know they have blocked fallopian tubes until they are trying to get pregnant and are running into issues. So if you have ever suffered from PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, there is a good chance that your tubes are blocked, as doctors estimate that at least 3 out of 4 women that have had a sexually transmitted disease do suffer from tubal blockage. So what we've learned is that these 6 common hormone conditions are responsible for 80% of infertility cases. Adria came to see me because she was having really long cycles and suffering from PCOS. She says, "Now I have started having regular 30-day cycles. Sarah has been so helpful on my journey towards pregnancy. As a vegetarian, I was concerned about my diet not providing everything I needed to create a healthy environment for a baby. Beyond helping me with my vegetarian diet, I had an unexpected bonus after several months of working with her. I've always had a long cycle, 6 weeks or more, and suffer from PCOS. However, after working with Sarah and shifting several things in my diet, I have now started having regular 30-day cycles. This seems like a real sign that I am on the right track with my diet and well-being. I would recommend her hands down. She made a potentially difficult task much easier with her welcoming personality and easily understood advice. Claudia came to see me because she was struggling with infertility. She said, "I read a ton of books on nutrition and fertility, and as helpful as they were, along with weekly acupuncture sessions, setting up 3 calls with Sarah was hands down the most helpful step I took in overcoming infertility." So now that you know the causes, the signs, and the symptoms of these common hormone conditions, you have the power to make changes in your life to overcome them. We know that these common hormone conditions are directly affecting our fertility health. So it's important to understand exactly how these hormone conditions affect your fertility health. So how does PCOS specifically affect fertility? Well, high levels of androgens, which are those male hormones, specifically testosterone, and high insulin levels can affect the menstrual cycle and prevent ovulation. So ovulation in women with PCOS can often stop completely, or it occurs really irregularly, which is why women with PCOS have super irregular cycles, or maybe don't cycle at all, or have very, very, very long cycles. So this can make it, of course, much more difficult for women with PCOS to conceive naturally, and some women can also have a greater risk of miscarriage. Now, this doesn't mean that all women with PCOS are infertile by any means, but PCOS definitely has an effect. Many women with PCOS do have children without the need for intervention, while others may absolutely require some further assistance. But, as we'll learn, diet and lifestyle changes are the #1 solution for PCOS. The other way that PCOS affects fertility is that women with PCOS are often overweight as a result of the metabolic imbalances caused by PCOS. So we know that being overweight can increase fertility problems, and so therefore it's important to eat well, clean up your environment, move your body regularly so that you can maintain a healthy weight and or prevent further weight gain. Research shows that for women with PCOS that are overweight, even a 5% weight loss can significantly improve fertility. So the main complication of endometriosis is impaired fertility. Approximately 1/3 to 1/2 of women with endometriosis have difficulty getting pregnant. For pregnancy to occur, an egg must be released from an ovary, travel through the neighboring fallopian tube, become fertilized by a sperm cell, and attach itself to the uterine wall to begin development. If we have endometriosis, this may obstruct the fallopian tube and prevent the egg and sperm from ever uniting. And the condition also seems to affect fertility in less direct ways, such as actually damaging the sperm and egg. Research has also shown that a woman's body may form antibodies against this misplaced endometrial tissue, and those antibodies may attack the uterine lining, causing miscarriage up to 3 times the normal rate. But there is hope. Many women who suffer mild to moderate endometriosis can still conceive and carry a pregnancy to term, especially when you're implementing all of the following strategies that we're going to discuss soon. So fibroids are thought to be the cause of infertility in 2 to 10% of infertility cases. Studies have shown that uterine fibroids may be responsible for the following fertility, conception, and pregnancy problems. So interference with implantation of the egg, compression of the fallopian tubes, which prevents conception, of course, as we learned, anovulatory cycles, so this means you do not ovulate, abnormal uterine blood flow, hindering movement of the sperm to the egg, miscarriage, intrauterine growth restriction, premature rupture of the membranes, and women with fibroids are 6 times more likely to have a C-section. So not all women with uterine fibroids will experience these troubles, and many go on to have healthy pregnancies even with uterine fibroids. But due to the risks associated with fertility and pregnancy, it is definitely best to work to reduce fibroid growth, prevent formation of new fibroids, and to maintain healthy lifestyle choices before trying to get pregnant so that you can bring about the best possible uterine health and not run into any issues. Now, it should be noted that many fibroids that are present during pregnancy actually shrink or disappear after pregnancy as the uterus goes back to a normal size. Progesterone plays several important roles in your fertility and pregnancy. Not only does it maintain the lining of the uterus, but it allows a fertilized egg to attach and survive. It also helps your body change your cervical mucus to allow for fertilization and promotes the full development of the fetus throughout pregnancy. Progesterone also prevents your immune system from rejecting the embryo as a foreign object, which of course allows for the full development of the fetus in the pregnancy. And ultimately, progesterone aids the body in metabolizing fat for energy for you and the baby. And during pregnancy, the placenta actually produces progesterone to help sustain the developing baby. When there's too much estrogen in the luteal phase, which is our second half of the our menstrual cycle, then the entire cycle is thrown off and fertility is negatively affected. So we start experiencing estrogen dominance symptoms like loss of energy and low libido, headaches, water retention, and more. So too much estrogen in the body causes the body to stop recruiting premium dominant follicles. It causes the body to negatively affects the quality of the uterine lining, and it decreases progesterone levels, as we learned earlier. So how do blocked fallopian tubes affect fertility? Well, if one or both fallopian tubes are blocked, the egg cannot reach the uterus, and the sperm cannot reach the egg, preventing fertilization and pregnancy. It's also possible for the tube to be partially blocked, which, as we learned earlier, this can increase the risk of a tubal pregnancy, otherwise known as ectopic pregnancy. So if you are suffering from any of these hormone conditions that are negatively affecting your fertility, I imagine you may feel hopeless, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Sarah was truly the first person who really got to the root of what was going on with me, and she found out there were a lot of hormone imbalances that was causing a kind of slew of other compounding problems as a result of that.
She really, really cares about the people she works with. She genuinely cares about your well-being.
She's not just a nutritionist. She's really passionate about what she does.
Little by little, you can do what you're comfortable with. Sarah completely understands that. She takes those steps with you.
She identified things that were going on with me that so many doctors and specialists just had never even really paid attention to.
Honestly, even within a week, I started feeling a lot more energy. I was like sort of alive again. Once I started working with her and I got my nutrition on track, I felt such a dramatic shift in not just my body, but in my mood and in my mind. Our society is really built upon the idea that we can fix things with medication or like quick fixes.
People naturally tend to be like, well, pharmaceuticals have their place, so maybe I do take a couple medications and I exercise a lot and maybe I can fix this on my own.
You have to heal internally in order for your outer symptoms to heal as well. And that's where the functional nutrition comes really into play.
I didn't have much confidence in what I was preparing for myself and what I was putting in my body. She really encourages a lifestyle change and helps you find ways to make that happen.
It's not just one aspect of your life. She will make your entire life better. I was more inspired to want to take care of myself, like I go to yoga now. I would recommend Sarah to anybody.
Why would you not want to learn about putting the best nutrition in your body? Why would you not want to have great energy? Why would you not want to sleep better? Why would you not want to set yourself up to feel better about your own self and in your own body?
That was the thing that really struck me, was hearing in her voice that she really did care. It's changed my life, and I felt like I couldn't have really done that without her.
I've had a bad relationship with food my entire life, and now I'm proud.
She takes into account, this is your lifestyle, this is what's realistic, here's a solution for that that's really going to work well for you.
This is going to be something I take with me forever.
It truly has been life-changing.
She's the best choice you could make to help you through a journey regarding your health.
So Lisa was another one-on-one client I worked with, and she says, the nutrition work we did together was instrumental in helping me get pregnant after having fertility challenges. Sarah has been a huge help to me through the whole process of getting pregnant, being pregnant, nursing, and taking care of a little one. The nutrition work we did together was instrumental in helping me get pregnant after having fertility challenges. So all this being said, conception is possible regardless of your unique situation. And there are natural remedies you can implement right now to overcome these hormone conditions. While there is no cure for most of these conditions, there are definitely specific steps you can take to naturally improve fertility and decrease symptoms. Sometimes change occurs right away, but remember that it can take 6 to 12 months of consistent lifestyle and diet changes, along with natural therapies to bring about real change in the body when living with any of these hormone conditions. Now, that's not to say that you have to wait 6 to 12 months to try to conceive, as many of these positive changes that you are making can coincide with the preconception period. So there are certain dietary principles that are foundational and apply to all 6 hormone conditions. No matter which one you may be suffering from, or you may not be suffering from any of these, and yet these dietary principles still apply to everyone when preparing your body for a healthy pregnancy. So first and foremost, focus on eating real food. Fresh food that you primarily cook yourself, and choose organic as often as possible. Stay away from anything coming in a box, a bag, or a package with long ingredient lists. You want to eat lots of clean proteins such as wild-caught fish and seafood, 100% grass-fed and grass-finished red meat, pasture-raised organic poultry, high-quality fats and oils, protein-rich beans and legumes, lots of organic local veggies and fruits, and small amounts of whole, non-gluten grains. I always tell clients, choose the highest quality of food that you can afford. The other big dietary change is that we want to eliminate all foods that increase inflammation in the body. So what you eat directly affects not only your well-being, but also your hormones. So when attempting to balance hormones naturally, one of the most important things we can do is reduce inflammation in the body. So we do this by eliminating the foods that cause inflammation: sugar, gluten, dairy, vegetable oils, soy, GMOs, caffeine, and alcohol. So the complete avoidance of sugar or anything that turns into sugar in the body, such as bread products, cereals, granola, energy bars, baked goods, pasta, crackers, chips, desserts, sweets, you name it. All of these increase insulin levels, right? So by completely avoiding sugar or anything that turns into sugar, we can decrease excess insulin, helping to decrease inflammation and prevent the many symptoms of hormone dysfunction. Gluten, we know, is a well-researched fertility inhibitor, which is why it's so important to get it completely out of your diet. Gluten intolerance has been linked to altered estrogen levels and consequences such as amenorrhea, infertility, and diminished ovarian reserve. Research also shows that following a gluten-free diet improves a woman's ability to carry a pregnancy full term. Now, I'm not talking about all that fake gluten-free stuff, right? Because that just turns into sugar in your body like the other stuff. I'm just talking about eating real food that doesn't contain gluten. Non-organic dairy is very high in steroids, hormones, and other chemicals that can alter your estrogen levels and encourage the development and growth of estrogen-driven issues like endometriosis, fibroids, etc. Alcohol, caffeine. So overdoing it in the alcohol department increases inflammation throughout the body, reduces immune function, and encourages hormonal imbalances. So by reducing or eliminating alcohol, you can absolutely help to get your hormones back on track. Caffeine. So too much caffeine is taxing on your body, especially your liver. When your liver is too busy focusing on detoxification, it diverts precious energy away from the reproductive and hormonal system. Another negative aspect of coffee is that studies showed drinking more than 2 cups of coffee daily can actually increase estrogen levels in women and can worsen conditions with a hormonal basis like fibroids, endometriosis, and estrogen dominance. So the more you can keep your alcohol and caffeine consumption to a minimum, the easier it is for your liver to detox and keep your hormones in proper balance. So vegetables and soy, we eliminate those because and GMOs, because all 3 of those are big GMO culprits. So vegetable oils such as canola oil, safflower, sunflower, cottonseed, corn oil, soybean oil, these are all highly toxic, rancid, man-made oils that can be extremely inflammatory to the body. Soy is one of the main GMO crops that we know of. And what we do know about GMOs is that when we transition animals' feed from normal, regular feed to genetically modified feed, one of the first things that happens is that animals are unable to reproduce. So we never want to be consuming GMOs if at all possible. So the next big dietary change is we want to eliminate foods that increase estrogen in the body. So avoiding foods and substances that act like estrogen will prevent estrogen dominance and all the negative fertility effects that arise from this condition. So we are exposed to probably the highest levels of xenoestrogens in our conventional meat and dairy products, which is why it's critical to make sure all of your animal products are coming from organically raised animals. The same goes for fruits and veggies. The insecticides and pesticides used are often estrogen-based, meaning they increase our exposure to estrogen. So as we talked about earlier, soy is a potent phytoestrogen, which is why we definitely want to avoid that, as too much soy in the body can unnecessarily increase estrogen in a body that's already exposed to too much estrogen in our environment. So one substance that many people don't know that creates estrogen dominance is coffee, our culture's favorite beverage. So research has shown that coffee can absolutely significantly increase estrogen levels. So I recommend all women struggling with hormone condition or trying to get pregnant get off coffee. The next dietary change is eat lots of healthy fats. So cholesterol is the mother hormone that literally turns into all of our reproductive and adrenal hormones. So what this means is that all of our reproductive hormones are made from fat. We do not need to be avoiding fat. We just need to be making sure that we are choosing the right quality, the right types of fat. So something I always tell my clients is that without enough high quality fats in the diet, it's like trying to build a house with no bricks. It just doesn't work, which is why it's so important to eat lots of healthy fats to help reduce inflammation, regulate hormone production, relieve pain caused by certain conditions, such as fibroids and endometriosis, and support your overall endocrine system. My favorite healthy fats are wild-caught fish and seafood, egg yolks from pastured chickens, grass-fed butter or ghee, raw and unrefined coconut products, 100% pure olive oil, raw nuts and seeds and nut butters, and of course, avocados. So it's also important to increase intake of iron-rich foods. So iron-rich foods replenish the loss of iron in the body, which is a result of excess bleeding from conditions like endometriosis and or fibroids. Both of these conditions can often cause women to lose more blood during their monthly menstruation, which over time can lead to anemia. So to replace the excessive loss of iron, it's important to include lots of good high iron foods like grass-fed red meat, liver, heart, and other organ meats, extra eggs and egg yolks, lentils, spinach, and sesame seeds. Add in cruciferous veggies. So cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, bok choy, all of these veggies help support optimal liver detoxification and balanced estrogen levels. And research has shown that high consumption of these cruciferous vegetables is a protective factor for hormone conditions such as uterine fibroids, endometriosis, estrogen dominance, low progesterone, all of these conditions that we've been talking about. So it's also important to consume adequate amounts of fiber. Fiber helps to remove excess estrogen from the body. Fiber also helps keep blood sugar levels nice and balanced, which is critical for the proper production of hormones. Now, I suggest increasing fiber by consuming a whole food, nutrient-dense diet, rich in starchy vegetables, flax seeds and chia seeds, beans and lentils, avocados, berries, coconut, figs, prunes. And you'll notice that I didn't say grains. So I actually don't suggest grains as a source of fiber, as grain-based fiber can be really irritating to the gut lining. So by changing the way you eat, you have the power to change your hormonal picture and reverse an internal ecosystem functioning out of balance. In addition to dietary changes, specific lifestyle changes are important to incorporate no matter what hormone condition you may be suffering from. So first off, it's super important to only drink filtered water. Tap water contains a high amount of residual estrogens from all the millions of women on hormonal birth control. It's important to make sure you're using a high quality water filter. This does not include the filter on your refrigerator, all right? It needs to be a good high quality quality water filter that's going to get rid of fluoride, estrogens, dioxins, which are chemicals that act like those potent xenoestrogens, heavy metals, and pesticides. The next big lifestyle change is exercise. So exercise, exercise, exercise. Seriously, I can't say that enough. Exercise boosts production of our feel-good hormones, our anti-inflammatory chemicals in the body. It improves estrogen metabolism, and of course, it burns fat. So we know that excess estrogen is stored in our fat cells. So being overweight or obese definitely we know contributes to hormone imbalance because fat cells are known to change hormones into estrogen. So then estrogen is stored in our fat cells and slowly released in the body. So the more body fat, the more potential for excess circulating estrogen and the less progesterone, therefore, that your body has. So 30 to 60 minutes of daily, so every single day, low impact movement. That can be yoga, that can be power walking, swimming, strength training, hiking, biking, Pilates, whatever it may be to get your heart rate up, increase circulation to your reproductive organs, and help you improve your overall physical and mental health. So I encourage clients to find something that you love, whether it be hiking, yoga, cycling, tennis, whatever. Just get out and do it often. So now keep in mind here that too much exercise can actually lead to altered hormone levels as well. So excess activity, right, intense overexercise can actually have a negative impact on your hormones, progesterone in particular. So I encourage you to sweat every day, but limit your amount of high intensity training, long distance running, and overexercising in general. Acupuncture. So acupuncture can help stimulate the reproductive organs, improve blood flow, normalize hormone levels, and promote the proper functioning of the reproductive system. Studies have shown that regular acupuncture treatments lead to more regular menstrual cycles, reduced stress, optimized hormone levels, and reduced waist circumferences. Castor oil packs. So castor oil pack is a cloth soaked in castor oil, which is placed on the skin to enhance circulation and promote healing of the tissues and organs underneath the skin. So to support hormone health, I recommend placing the cloth soaked in castor oil on your lower abdomen, where your ovaries and uterus live. You can also place the cloth over your liver to support optimal hormone detoxification as well. Lunaception. So lunaception can help regulate cycles and bring about more hormonal balance into the body. So this practice focuses on sleeping in complete darkness, except for 3 nights out of your cycle each month. This is what our bodies are traditionally used to when we would only be exposed to when we would only be exposed to light at nighttime during the 3 nights around the full moon. Darkness is closely tied to optimal hormone production, and when we sleep in a room with light pollution from street lamps or night lights, alarm clocks, it can disrupt the natural production of hormones while we sleep. So it's important to make sure you're sleeping in complete darkness. Stress. So we've talked a lot about stress, and we know that the present world is filled with stress. That's non-negotiable. But how you respond and react to stress is entirely in your control. So I encourage practicing managing your daily stressors with ease. Some of my favorite tools are yoga, long, slow walks in nature, biofeedback, a massage, or whatever else it is that may bring your unique soul pleasure. This honestly may be one of the most important things you can do to manage your hormone symptoms. Clean up your environment. So we've already talked a ton about the negative influence of xenoestrogens. Therefore, literally this is probably the easiest and potentially the most important lifestyle change to make to limit your exposure to these fake estrogens. Lastly, bioidentical progesterone. So progesterone is very useful, of course, to balance excess estrogen. And natural progesterone can be used by the body as a precursor or starting material to make other hormones, such as adrenal hormones, if necessary. So bioidentical progesterone can be used for a variety of reasons, including relief from PMS symptoms, such as menstrual cramps, breast tenderness, weight gain, bloating. Using bioidentical progesterone can also help normalize your menstrual cycle, provide relief from breast pain and tenderness, and prevent miscarriage. So there are many nutrients that can help restore optimal hormone balance and alleviate the symptoms of PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, low progesterone, high estrogen, and blocked fallopian tubes. But here are my top 6 absolute must-have. So magnesium. Magnesium regulates the pituitary gland, which then in turn regulates hormone levels. So our pituitary gland is like the master hormone controller. So when magnesium is lacking, your body will produce less of the necessary hormones to keep your reproductive system in good shape. And we know that boosting magnesium levels can help to heal PMS, PCOS, adrenal fatigue, and other hormone cycle-related problems. Vitamin D. So studies show a significant correlation between vitamin D levels and fertility. Low levels of vitamin D negatively impact fertility in a way such as one study measured vitamin D levels in women undergoing IVF and found the odds of pregnancy were 4 times higher for women with high vitamin D levels compared to those with a vitamin D deficiency. And another study found that in the group of women with the highest vitamin D levels, 47% became pregnant, while among women with low vitamin D levels, the pregnancy rate was only 20%. And another more recent study done on women undergoing IVF revealed a higher fertilization and implantation rate in the group of women with the highest vitamin D levels. Fish oil. So the essential fatty acids EPA and DHA found in fish oil are highly anti-inflammatory fats. So because of this, several studies have found that omega-3 fats may be beneficial for women with hormone dysfunction. And a recent study found that fish oil can even help relieve pain caused by conditions such as fibroids or endometriosis by decreasing levels of these highly inflammatory chemicals in the body. DIM. So DIM stands for diindolylmethane, which is a compound that helps to support healthy estrogen metabolism. DIM balances the hormones by helping the liver break down estrogen and remove it from the body. So by cleansing the body of excess estrogen, DIM can help your body reduce estrogen dominance and balance progesterone levels. Maca. So maca is considered an adaptogenic herb. It's a root from high in the Andes Mountains down in South America that has been used for more than 2 millennia to promote fertility in both men and women. And it's also amazingly helpful with stress adaptation. So maca works by nourishing the entire endocrine system by supporting the body's own production of hormones without actually, of course, containing hormones itself. So maca supports the master glands in the brain, including the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus, to correct hormone imbalance at its source. Scientific studies have found that maca boosts sperm production in men and can even increase sperm activity, so it's great for your partner as well. And similar studies show that females given maca respond with increased regularity in cycles and easier ovulation. And another super bonus for many people is that maca shows a marked increase in libido for both men and women. Vitex. So Vitex is one of the most powerful herbs for women's fertility and menstrual health. There are numerous studies and testimonials of Vitex and its effect on the body. And one of the reasons we know that Vitex is so effective and popular is because of its ability to balance hormones, but like maca, it does not contain any hormones itself. So Vitex supports hormone balance in the body by having an effect on the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian feedback loop, which corrects the problem at the source. And my last favorite supplement is called Inflammatone. So Inflammatone is a blend of what are called proteolytic enzymes, protein digesting enzymes. So I like to think of these proteolytic enzymes like little Pac-Man going around the bloodstream cleaning house and eating up scar tissue and digesting inflammatory tissue. This systemic proteolytic enzyme therapy is one of the best and most effective natural treatments for conditions like endometriosis, fibroids, and blocked fallopian tubes. Because what these enzymes do is they literally cleanse the blood they cleanse the blood and help to bring about proper circulation to the reproductive system, getting the stagnant blood cleared out and bringing fresh oxygenated blood to your uterus and ovaries. Systemic enzymes also may be helpful in reducing the size of uterine fibroids by healing and preventing scar tissue from existing fibroids, as well as promoting healthy circulation and detoxification of tissues, while also reducing pain and inflammation, which is great. And it's also interesting to note that proteolytic enzyme therapy has been used quite successfully to unblock fallopian tubes and to minimize endometriosis. So the bottom line is natural therapies can restore balance and improve chances of conception. Consistently incorporating these changes into your diet and lifestyle creates dramatic shift in your hormones.
I had heard the phrase nutritional therapist via a podcast, and the phrase had always intrigued me, like this idea of food being healing for your body. I mean, like, what a concept, right? Before working with Sarah, I had no concept of how integrated everything was, how food affected every part of my cycle, how it affected my hormones. Prior to meeting with her, I felt so nervous because there's a vulnerability there that happens when you're putting it all on the table. But at the end of that, I had so much hope. Like, I really did. And I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel shamed. I just felt like there was a path in front of me and she was going to help me walk that path. And we got pregnant 2 months after starting to work with Sarah.
Melissa came to see me because she was stuck in the negative cycle of burning the candle at both ends and suffering from infertility as a result. She says, "You changed my life. I am forever grateful. I cannot thank Sarah Jane enough for her life-changing nutrition advice and her sincere understanding and support of our dream to have a child. When I met Sarah Jane, I was stuck in the negative cycle of stress eating and burning the candle at both ends. As she so rightfully put it, my body felt like it was constantly running from a bear. Certainly not a good time to make a baby. With her guidance, I was able to get back on a path of positive energy and was able to prepare my body for the upcoming journey of a lifetime. My daughter Carolyn was born in January. The changes that I made with the help of Sarah Jane are ones that I truly believe contributed to her arrival and are ones that I will use throughout my life. You changed my life. I am so forever grateful. Thank you." So these 6 common conditions that we went over are affecting your fertility and your ability to conceive. So now you know the signs, symptoms, and causes of these 6 common hormone conditions, and you know how they each affect your fertility health. And you know the most effective remedies to naturally heal these hormone conditions. So now you're able to take control of your hormone health and your fertility. To be able to successfully overcome the negative symptoms you experience is one of the greatest gifts you can do for yourself and your future fertility. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot about your body and your hormones. And make sure to connect with me directly if I can help in any other way.